Friends, welcome to my channel Sushant Chess Wise. Today we are going to look at some very important king and pawn endgames. Today we are going to discuss the concept of opposition in more detail. So basically what we are doing is we are seeing those positions where without opposition the result will go in opponent's favor. Okay. So opposition is the main factor which decides the result. So let's look at this position which we had seen before, but this time it is black to play. Okay, we looked this at in lesson 31. So with black to play, what happens here? Black manages to get the opposition. So black starts with the very important move ke7. Okay, he takes a distant opposition. See, the kings are on the same color, so obviously there are odd number of squares between them. See, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 squares between them now. And what happens? Wherever the king comes up, black is again able to take opposition. Okay, what happens here is, after the move kd7, white can play king f2. Okay, and then after kd6, white can play kf3. This position white will be able to win. Okay, but after kd7, kf2, ke6, okay, this position again we see. This will also draw the game, because wherever the king comes up, f3 or e3, black will take opposition. Okay, so this position is drawn for black, but the best move is ke7. Many people think that the position is lost. Okay, but it is not so. Just black has to take the opposition properly. So now white played kd to win the game. Black plays kd6. Again he is trying to keep the opposition. So this is again a distant opposition. Now wherever the king moves, let's say kd3, kd5, ke3, ke5. Another very important aspect is, whenever the king and pawn come together, it's not favorable for the side with the extra pawn. So let's see king f3. Again black has to play the move king f5. Any other move here will lose. King d4 and king d5 both will allow the king to reach the f4 square, and then white can waste the pawn move. So black plays kf5, taking the opposition. Now white is compelled to push the pawn. So either he plays e3 or e4, both will reach a similar position. Now see, white has managed the opposition, but the king and pawn have come together. In lesson 31 I told you that the king should be ahead of the pawn, then only it's possible to convert the position. Only position where this position works, king and pawn together, is on the 6th rank. Okay. Now black plays ke5, and again we see that white is compelled to push the pawn. King cannot improve. King moves anywhere away, then black attacks the pawn. White takes opposition, and whenever black is about to lose the opposition, he should come one step, see, away. He has to keep one step gap from the pawn. So as if he is taking opposition from the pawn. So this is a very important drawing technique, so that whenever the king comes up, we have choices to take opposition. Okay, so come in front of the pawn, leaving one square. So now white has to play the move e4. Again same technique. King simply moves to e6, one step away from the pawn, leaving one square in middle. King f4, kf6, forced to play e5. Now ke6, ke7 both work. ke6, ke4, allowing an opposition. Whenever we are about to lose the opposition, just ensure that black doesn't give opposition to white. So he will play ke7. Now kd5, kd7, forced to play e6, ke7, ke5, and one last correct move, ke8, very important. And now after kd6, kd8, we reach position number 1 with white to play, which we discussed in lesson 31, and it's a drawn game. Okay, let's look at the next position now. This is the second position now. White has two extra pawns. See, in most of the cases, with two extra pawns, we see that the side with two extra pawns will be able to convert the game. But there are some exceptions, and still opposition plays a very important role. So that is why this position is very important. Let's say white thinks that he can win the game anyhow, and he plays the pawn to f5. See, usually what happens, whenever there are two pawns, mostly the technique is, if the pawn and the king is not well placed, you sacrifice the pawn above, force the king to take, and then white takes opposition and wins the game. That works most of the time. But here after the move f5, black plays the king to f8. See, this technique will be used again and again. In front of the pawn we are going leaving one square, okay, and see here the king cannot take opposition because of his own pawn. See, now only thing white can do is play the king to e6. If kd6, then king f7, this pawn will be taken and even this will get attacked, okay. So after king f8, white has ke6, now ke8, and now see f7 check, of course king f8. And now we see the problem that if white plays the pawn to f6, see all the squares are covered by the pawn and this pawn is supported by the king, so it has become a stalemate here. And even if white plays the king to f6, still the game is drawn because of stalemate. So what white will have to do? He will have to give up this pawn. So let's say he can play the king to d5 or d6, wherever, or even e5. Then after kf7, ke5, now black has only one correct move here, that is ke7, which will hold the game. To ke8 and kf8, white would take opposition respectively, ke8 then ke6, kf8 then kf6. And now this game is drawn. Again see the problem. On the 5th rank, black has managed opposition and the pawn is along with it. So what happens? He has to push the pawn, king f7, king f5, kf8, ke6, ke8, and the game is drawn. So white has to play the only correct move, kf5, taking the opposition. Let's see what happens now. Black has three options. After king e8, white will simply get the opposition, and after kf8, f7, kg7, ke7, and the pawn promotes to queen. The right move is king f8. Now king g6 and e6 both win. White played the king to the center. Okay, so after ke6, ke8, if king goes to g8, then ke7, and again white controls the queening squares. So after ke8, now f7 check, kf8, and white had used this pawn move properly. The second pawn is used to waste the move. Black goes kg7 now, then king to e7, and now finally white has managed to control the queening square. Okay. Now black sets a small trap here. Black plays the king to f7. Okay. And now if white queens the pawn here, f8 equal to queen, then see queen will control all the squares other than g6, and the g6 square is controlled by the pawn. So f8 queen will become stalemate over there. Okay. So let's look what white should do here. Okay. Play the pawn to f6 and wait. Then wherever king moves, he can queen the pawn. But white has a very strong move. King comes to f6. Okay. And now if king goes to h8, then f8 queen, king h7 and qg7 checkmate. So black plays king to h6. Okay. And now white will play f8 queen check. If king goes to h7, then qg7 mate, and if king goes to h5, this position we discussed while doing the mating two positions. White plays the queen to b4 and controls the 4th rank, forcing black king to go back to h6, and then queen h4 checkmate. Okay. So basic point is, without taking opposition in many positions, it's not possible to convert the game. So opposition is the deciding factor whether the game will become draw or whether the side with an extra pawn will be able to convert the game. Okay, we'll look at one more example. This is the last position now. Again we see white king wants to approach the pawn and he wants to capture the pawn, and only then he will be able to queen his g pawn. So most logical response is to play kb5. Okay, and the king is trying to reach c6, d6, e6, f6 and g6, wants to take the pawn. But what happens here, when the king tries to rush towards the pawn, which is a very natural course, black gets opposition by kb7, and we see that, see, after kc5, king c7, kd5, kd7, ke5, ke7, and the only entry points are these three from where the king is able to enter. But because the move is white's, he is not able to do anything over here. He has to go back to e6, d5, and after kd5, kd7, again there is nothing, because now if king goes to c5, black will enter on e6, f5 and capture the white pawn. So white has to play ke5 again and ke7, and the game will be drawn. Nothing much could be done, because if the king moves behind, then black will get the opposition and white might lose this pawn. Okay, so although he will not lose the game here. Okay, so let's see what happens in the game. Play the correct move king a5. So what he gets from this, we will know when the kings reach here. Okay, so kb7, kb5, kc7, kc5, kd7, kd5. Now if king goes to c7, then white comes ke6, kf6 and takes the pawn. So ke7 forced, ke5, and now we see for the pawn on 6th rank, whenever the pawns are in front of each other, these three squares are important. And once white enters to any of these three, white position will be winning. He will enter from the side like this. So if king d7, obviously kf6 and the pawn is lost instantly. But after kf7, now the king goes to d6, and black will not be able to get the opposition back, and this pawn would be lost. Let's see how. Black tries to take a diagonal opposition. The diagonal opposition doesn't work all the time. Now see, white can play just ke6. If ke8, then kf6, pawn is lost. So black played kg7. Now ke7, gaining the opposition back. Now king went to g8 so that he can support from h7 next move. King f6, and now after kh7, white plays the move kf7. So now black is forced to go to h8 and white wins the pawn. Okay, and after the move kg8, we reach position number 2. Okay, position number 2 is always winning for the side with an extra pawn. What is position number 2? King on the 6th rank and pawn behind it. So other than rook pawn, in any file it's a winning position. And now white should, whenever it's a knight pawn, white should make sure that he goes to the rook file, because on the bishop file there are some chances of draw. We should push the king away from the corner. After the move king f6, there are some drawing possibilities by the move kh7, kf7, and now see kh8. White cannot play g6, and because the game ends in a stalemate then. So he has to come back to g8 and allow the same position. So we have this position. So white plays king to h6. Black has to play kh8, taking the opposition. Pawn goes to g6, and now we reach position number 1 with black to play, which is winning for white. King g8, g7, kf7, kh7, and the pawn queens next move, and we know how to win from there. King and queen versus king checkmate. So what I wanted to show you in these lessons is opposition is the most important concept in king and pawn endgame. It is a decisive factor for both the sides. Okay, I hope you are enjoying these lessons. Do like, share and subscribe the channel. Thanks for your time.